Hey, everybody. Welcome back. X's and Knowles, presented by Knowles 24/7. Adam's got the finger guns out. It's going to be a good night. We are here to talk about it. Has been like our spring position preview. Now it's kind of like a review because spring practices are going on. If you're subscribed to Knowles 24/7, you would already know that. If you're not, judgment, passing it towards you. Fix it. There's deals all the time. Get on the website. It's the best. Subscribe to everything. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Subscribe to Knowles 24/7 YouTube channel. Bada, bada, bada. Because now we're going to be talking about our preview review, kind of looking at these position groups as they are coalescing, as they are starting to gel, as they are starting to mesh with all the new pieces of this Mike Norvell offense. And very few, in my opinion, Mr. Brown, are any more interesting than the position units we're going to be talking about tonight. That is the wide receivers and the tight ends. I think this is a very interesting position group. A lot of new, a lot of familiar, but untested. So it's going to be just you and I talking about tonight. Kevin is off doing some family stuff. Hopefully we'll have him back next week. He is a very busy man right now. He can tell you about that when he comes back. So right now you're stuck with these two jabrones. And we will talk about wide receivers and tight ends. Going to look at film, going to analyze what they got, what they're bringing back, and what we honestly expect from them coming off a 13-0 ACC championship season, losing two of the biggest pieces from that team in Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. Adam, what do you think about these two units, wide receivers first?
Yeah, who wants to talk about wide receivers than two centers?
Literally. I know, dude, just two big, ugly trench boys, and Kevin is just
I apologize now. This is Kev's home. This is his heaven, and he can't be here right now.
So. We'll do our best. These big, dumb idiots are going to do our best. These cavemen.
I thought you were going to go all the Rock final boss there for a second on people not subscribed to Knowles 24/7, but
I'll give them one more week because if I don't see the subscriptions rise,
another conversation for another time. We've got blood back in the WWE, ladies and gentlemen, and it
took them long enough. Listen here, Mama Rhodes. Tell these Mama Rhodeses about Florida State's wide receivers, my man.
Yeah, I think the conversation's got to start with. I think it's two separate areas. A, guys they've brought in, transfer portal guys, and then B, guys they've got to develop that they've brought in through the years in the high school class. It seems like from everything going on with practice, and again, we did this last year with a little bit. We let our previews kind of leak into through spring ball, and allowed kind of the information that's coming out with spring to drive some of the talking points that we're going to have. So. The conversation is going to start with Malik Benson. I'm going to pull up some clips in the background for you guys to watch, or ladies to watch while we are just chatting. But Benson's I would say he's the alpha dog right now. He's the guy, at least from the things we've heard, the conversations we've had with Brendan and Dane and Chris and Clay as they've been there at practices. It seems like he's the guy that has the potential to be the number one wide receiver for them in this upcoming season. But right now in spring, it seems like he's the guy that's kind of planted his flag as the man in that wide receiver room. He's obviously the most experienced player. He played at Alabama last year, transferred in, and was a big time JUCO prospect prior to that. Major speed guy. I think he did an interview middle of last week. He talked about being a guy that prides himself on catching the ball. It would be a big deal if he could go out there and be a steady catch the ball. I throw this name around a lot. For some people, it doesn't mean a whole lot, but for me, it does. If he could go be Pokey Wilson for you, I think that would go a long way in your passing game for the 2024 season.
And he's got, and we agree when people hear that, they go, huh? Like you're talking about, let's get on this phrase. But it makes sense. And it's something, a dynamic that Florida State's very effective offense last year didn't have. That take the top off, that burner, that speed, that guy that can make space for the guys playing in the slot where Florida State has a lot of talent, and also make space for the tight ends we're going to talk about, the running backs in the running game, and DJ Uyongalele. Florida State didn't have that. So if you have a guy that can take the top off the defense with the kind of plus athleticism that the legit track guy Malik Benson has, that yard after the catch ability, nice size. It could just be a souped up version of Pokey Wilson. And even with Pokey, like you said, not being like an athletic juggernaut, very, very high skill set, very good speed. His highlights from that 2022 season, man, look back at that LSU game.
Yeah.
A very it was something that offense was missing last year. So I'm with you, man. Do you think Malik could be that guy? Like, are you worried about the transition to a higher usage rate where he could maybe fall flat on his face? The reports have been very positive so far.
Yeah, the reports have been very positive. I've heard the term number one wide receiver thrown about.
So that's what FSU needs is number one, because all the guys are bringing back.
And they need a number one. They need a number one. Last year, they lacked the ability to have a guy that could run by a corner or split safeties on post routes. They really missed that. And that's an area where Pokey was a strength. It's something he did very well. And it's something that they need to get back in this offense. They clearly went out and targeted speed in the offseason with another player that we'll discuss a little bit. Not as much going around about him right now in Jaylen Brown, but they went out and targeted speed wide receivers. They know what they need to do, what they lacked last year. It really kind of tightened the box on them. So they need guys that can run by people, run away from man coverage and split safeties on some of these post routes. So do I think Benson can be that? Yeah. Does he need to prove it? Absolutely. I mean, there's no denying that the numbers that he put up at Alabama were not impressive. He did not do a whole lot at Alabama last year.
Alabama was a poor passing offense, though.
It was
with a lot of NFL talent. Yeah,
it was a poor offense in general. I wouldn't say Tommy Rees is a guy known for putting together dynamic passing attacks. You think of his time at Notre Dame and then at Alabama. So I know Bud was on the message boards recently, kind of putting out some data of Malik Benson's game at Alabama, and he was one of their lowest. I don't know all the numbers.
Well, it was like of the top 6 targets, he had a lot of metrics that were very low. I think it's one of those things. Those are things you should take into account. It was a very talented wide receiver room, a quarterback. The thing that like I said, you want to take that into account. How many targets did he actually get while he was on the field? Right. Jalen Milroe was not a very accurate passer of the football. And on his plays, how many reads do you really think they gave him outside of 1 or 2? So there was a lot of plays. I'm sure we could analyze the film if this is something you guys are interested in the offseason, where Malik Benson was on the field taking a snap and he either never got a pass thrown his way.
Correct.
I think that you got to bank on the physical characteristics, the things that you've seen in JUCO, the reason why Alabama and Nick Saban wanted to bring him onto this squad, and you build around those physical characteristics. And and at least from like a mindset perspective, we like to talk film, we analyze film, but GJ Uyongalele had this to say. This from Brendan Sinone's article that he posted today about the wide receiver group. For Malik, this is DJ. The sky's the limit. I think he's a great football player. Right mindset to go out there and dominate. He needs to build on that, get that confidence, because you're not just another guy on the field that Jalen Milroe is not looking at. You're a dude that DJ's going to be looking at a lot every single game, and that
what's important to note. I mean, DJ's a dude with a big time arm that can throw it about as far as you need to be able to throw it on a football field, and Benson's a kind of kid that can run as fast as anybody on the football field. So there's a marriage of strengths between those two that would make a lot of sense. And I think when you start talking about what the Florida State offense needs to do in 2024, it needs to run the ball effectively. It needs to hand the ball off and then fake handoffs and throw the ball over the top of defenses. So there's a lot of hope that Benson's going to be able to do that, plus some other stuff. If all he can do is run by guys and catch vertical routes and run and split safeties on posts, that would have been a success in my opinion.
I think so too. Like, there's talk of him being the number one guy. Dude, he's still very valuable on this team for all the things that he opens up, even if he's not. If he becomes the deep ball merchant, they're getting Malik Benson because I think they know for a fact he can be that, at least threaten the deep ball. And if he becomes more than that, that's another good evaluation by Mike and the staff. Who do you want to talk about next? Because there is that nice mix of those guys that are coming in. You got some age, some veterans, some like 5th-year guys like Ja'Kai Douglas, Darian Williamson, Kentron Poitier. Then you also got those kind of 2nd-year, those Mike Norvell guys, Vandrevius Jacobs, Hykeem Williams, Destin Hill. Where do you want to go next? Where do you think is that, if you had to kind of tier the wide receiver group at Florida State for 2024, where all eyes are on Malik Benson right now, just because he looks like he has the best combination of all of those things. Who would be in that tier with Benson, or maybe that tier right below what we expect out of them?
I think the next tier probably needs to be maybe just as far as the conversation goes is with Hykeem Williams and Dustin Hill. I think those are the two guys that. So Zach, there's been a lot of conversation about recruiting recently, and the narratives kind of surrounding this staff of recruiting.
Yep,
we're not going to go into recruiting a whole lot here.
Dude, it's the same thing. It's a slow spring. It's whatever.
But a major narrative that is out there is this staff does not develop high school wide receivers, or has not developed high school wide receivers. So I think it's important that and I think these are probably your next 2 most talented players. In Hykeem Williams and Dustin Hill, that they take the next step on the football field. Hykeem we got just a little bit of film I'll put on the background, and then it kind of goes into some other stuff.
And he looks, for a kid that was kind of like a trial by fire coming in, there were some
he came in out of shape. I mean,
there was out of shape concerns, dude. That is not the case.
He came in from a program that wasn't a high school program that isn't known for being very successful. So
it wasn't like he came from an Aquinas, right? Like a St. Thomas Aquinas or something like that. But he looks, I say all that to say, this offseason, if you guys saw the interview that he did today, I think he did it with Jeff Colhane, the voice of the Noles, trotting in. He looks like $1 trillion, man.
Yeah, he really does. And look, before he got hurt, I mean, people will think of this play. But before he got hurt, he was in on a crucial 3rd down against Duke at nighttime in a ranked game under the lights at Duke, and made a massive 3rd down catch.
Huge conversion in a very tight game. So he was starting to build confidence with Jordan before that injury.
He was building confidence with Jordan. He was building confidence with the staff. He was obviously building confidence. This play right here, building confidence in his own game. That's pretty big time. And you see him blocking there, which we know how important that is for this group. If Hykeem can take the next step in his development, and I'm not saying he's got to be the number 1, but if he can go out there and be a solid number 2 or even a number 3 for you, a guy that you can rely on to go out and catch the ball 35, 40 times, score a couple touchdowns, be a difference maker in the blocking game. I think that's a big role and a big step in killing all these narratives about them not being able to develop high school prospects. If Benson's going to soak up a lot of targets, if he's going to be your number 1, it would make sense that Hykeem maybe is your other outside wide receiver. You would be looking at him on some of this. We'll see what the offense looks like, but
we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. It's still super early, and they're still just trying a bunch of stuff out at spring ball. So what his role is going to be, I mean, I think you look at him as like a number 2, number 3 wide receiver, and it would be a big thing for them to be able to say, hey, look, here he's taking that next step as a true sophomore. And then go ahead.
I was going to say he's a guy too that could benefit from, if Benson is able to take the top off with his yard after the catch ability, his ability to immediately like convert to a running back with the ball in his hands. You saw that in that Syracuse clip. He would benefit from coming across the middle. He's a player that's easy to scheme the ball into his hands over the middle, crossing routes, stuff where you can just get the ball into his hands quick and let him take advantage of it with a defense that's on their heels from getting deep ball like bombed on by DJ and Malik. And he's a kid that really could break out at him. And it sucks because he was earning trust, and all of those reps that he got when they started to increase in the middle of the season, he earned them from being a great blocker. I think he's going to build on that, man. I'm expecting like 400 plus yards, 300, 400 plus yards.
Yeah, I don't think it's unfair to think that that's in there. this isn't a prolific passing attack that's going to go out there and put up massive numbers just because Mike's going to constantly be looking at matchups and those kinds of things. I think what Hykeem's strength is going to be this year is catching those screens that we know Mike loves to throw out there.
Absolutely.
Being a guy that they get the ball to immediately and let him be that running back, and then allow him to do some of that screen and go stuff type stuff that we've seen. They threw it to Keon last year against Clemson for a touchdown. Like, I think that's the area where you go next with Hykeem, and then you allow his route tree to develop from there. But his strength is getting the ball and becoming a big physical force after he catches it, and super explosive. So that's where I think you start with him. But again, I mean, Mike's so matchup oriented. He's always going to be looking for ways to get him matched up against guys. And if Benson can be that true number one home run deep threat, it's going to back coverage off, and that's going to play into Hykeem's strengths.
It's going to play into a lot of people's strengths. Might play into this next player's strength too. Destin Hill, the mythical Destin Hill. He did get on the field last year, and there were some times where his athleticism flashed. I think he was dealing with some injuries too, right, Adam?
Yeah, big time.
Definitely, which sucks because it derailed it, but got those valuable reps on a very successful team. Now the responsibility, another off season, and he's a guy. Where do we expect him to line up? What's the best way for him to be used in conjunction with some of these other guys we've already talked about in this video?
Yeah, I'm curious if he plays the slot again like he did last year. He lined up in the slot a ton for them. I'm curious to see if he lines up there or if he lines up outside. If he lines up outside more, that means Hykeem might be losing some reps, or Malik Benson hasn't taken the step that you needed him to take. So
you Destin in the slot is the best thing.
I think so. But they like Ja'Kai there too. So it's just all about how you're going to deploy these guys. But
go four wide, baby. Go four wide.
I know. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But so funny enough, I think Destin has 2 90-yard touchdowns already in practices. So it speaks to his strengths. I mean, and I think Destin's a legit low 4.3 dude. So here's another super burner, another guy that can. When they lost him last year, it took an element away from the offense because it was a guy who we've talked about being able to split safeties with posts and stuff like that. He's a guy that could do that, and that went away. And we know now, seeing Keon run a 4.6, we know that Johnny's not that vertical dude either. We know that they lacked that once Destin got hurt, and then Ja'Kai was out a lot too. So I think you're going to see Destin as another go get it kind of dude. And I think you're going to see that that's a trend as we go forward here. And as we go through spring, we're going to have first scrimmage on this Thursday upcoming. I think we're going to continue to hear deep shot plays. And they are going to keep throwing these at people as they look to get back to being efficient with the running game. Maybe not quite as efficient with the passing game, but really efficient with these vertical balls.
Not efficient from like a 25 of 29,
right?
But efficient,
70% completion or something.
Efficient in the sense of how many points did you score and how little plays did it take to get those points? We've always been on this program. That's the type of the EPA expected points added efficiency. Yeah. I feel like that's the one that Florida State cares about more. So it could be, but I'm with you, Adam. It's not going to be ball control, air raid type stuff. It's going to be bombing on them with a very physical, fast, wide receiving unit.
Yeah. By all accounts, Destin's had a hell of a camp. I know Brendan has raved about him in his practice reports. I know he's not alone in that. People that talk about Florida State, some people that I talk to are really happy where he's at. It makes some sense that maybe he's a little bit ahead of Hykeem because obviously he's older, even though they've been in school 2 years together. It would make a little bit sense that Destin is maybe a step ahead. So I'm curious to see how they deploy them. I'm anxious to hear some feedback from Thursday's scrimmage. But I think Destin Hill may be right there with Malik Benson as guys that are ready to take that next step. And it would go a long way. Again, I think it would really do a lot of good for the staff to say, here's a guy we've developed. Here's a guy that we've brought into our program from the high school ranks, and we turned him into something. And he's going to explode this upcoming season. I think that's the hopes.
And I think too, even though he's a second-year guy, I feel this is a soft factor. There's a sense of urgency in that
Yeah,
kid.
yeah,
The time
yeah.
that he lost, he wants to make up for it, and he's put in the work that he can. And I think we've been talking about Mike Norvell has said that this team might be the most strong, fast team, most physically talented
Mhm.
team that he's had at Florida State. DJ said it about the wide receiver rooms. He said they're fast, they're strong, they're physical, and he thinks that they can do it all. Brock Glenn said it's a super fun group of guys to throw it to. They've impressed him and the whole quarterback room, which is, like he said, it's unproven, but man, the physical tools are there for a matchup guru like Norvell to take advantage of it. Who are some
Yeah.
other guys that
Well,
we
I
mentioned?
want to say, like, the thing that's been most heralded about this staff is their ability to develop guys, whether it be from the portal or whether it be from high school. They're,
Absolutely, yeah.
they've planted enough talent in this room with a Kentron Poitier, with a Darian Williamson if he could stay healthy, um, with a Jalen Brown who was a 5-star coming out and went to LSU and then transferred in this year, with a Ja'Kai Douglas. So we've got a little Ja'Kai Douglas film, but I think we're just going to skip that and keep kind of having a conversation here.
Okay.
Ja'Kai Douglas, a Jalen Lucas if he's deployed in some wide receiver roles. They've got enough pieces. They've got enough guys out wide with the speed and the ability to run vertically. And these quick, scatty guys like a Lucas, like a Douglas, who can run some vertical stuff, but can also just kind of get loose and get lost in the middle of the field or on some of these little whip routes. It's a really exciting room to think about. Kentron Portier was your king of the spring last year, and then he got hurt. He was banged up all season long. Like, it's not insane to think that he could come out here and by the end of the spring, we're again talking about, is Kentron your number one? And that's not the end of the world. Like,
And he's
he
got the
kind of showed it last
size.
year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you still need a dude that size. That's sick. I think he's like 6'3-ish, like real long, lengthy guy that can go up and win vertical balls. Like, you still need that in your program. And I think he'll be a valuable piece. And they've got a lot of bodies, got a lot of unproven bodies. But again, the staff is most known, or they're most talked about being able to develop. It's time to do that again. You did it with Johnny Wilson. You did it with Micah Pittman. You brought him in here, got a good year out of him. You did it with Pokey Wilson, obviously. It's time to do that again with some of these guys. Getting Malik Benson to take the next step. Ja'Kai Douglas being in a more featured role now. Destin, Hykeem, Kentron, being able to really just kind of turn all these guys loose. There's a potential for this wide receiver group to be really good, but they've got to go develop and they've got to go prove it.
I agree, and I think it's interesting because the way that they're attacking this receiver, it's not an issue because it was a very talented room last year, and you had that talent leave, so it's not like it's been neglected or anything like that. Say what you want about the high school recruiting, but I think that they fixed that with the additions of Lawayne McCoy, Camden Fryer. So I think that's starting to have an uptick as well. But when you have that much talent, you're attacking it with numbers in the same way that you like attack the offensive line with numbers, but in a much different way. Because a couple of years ago, you're actually attacking this wide receiver this problem with very talented numbers, and with all those dudes we mentioned. You're telling me you don't think that Mike Norvell, Ron Dugans, Alex Atkins can cobble together a very effective, like 4 or 5-man rotation out of those like 10 guys?
Right.
With the development that they've had, I'm not worried about it, man.
Right.
Now, it depends on what your expectations are of the room.
Agreed. And I think, like you put it earlier, when you start talking about like EPA and that kind of stuff, it's going to be there. It's going to be there. It's going to be a good number. They're going to find a way. Shit. They were running, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of the guys that were playing, but they were running. I can't even think of his name now. He was running slot fades against Jacksonville State 3 or 4 years ago, whatever.
Sure.
Keyshawn Helton.
Yeah, for sure.
They were running that group out there and finding success. I think there's a hell of a lot more talent in this room than what was there in 2022 with Pokey and Johnny. Like, I think they're going to be able to piece it together and find ways to have success with the passing game yet again.
And there's not that pressure, and nobody's ever alluded to it. But when you have a dude like Keon Coleman and a guy like Johnny Wilson, The pressure of and the tendency of your quarterback to feed them the rock. These are contested catch rate like titans, dude. They can come down with the ball. Now, they did not come down with those contested catches like Keon, like his contested catch rate, I think, fell from Michigan State to FSU, and they had a really, really good, effective year. But there's not going to be that. You've got a nucleus of talented dudes that haven't made a name for themselves. Norvell's not going to scheme players up so much. He's going to scheme up the matchups and the points. And that kind of takes the pressure off because there isn't a primary guy to feed because you've got like 6 or 7 hungry guys that want to make the most out of every opportunity. The question mark is if they can. So I think you might see, I don't ever want to say it's going to be a more effective passing attack when you lose a Keon and a Johnny. I think that's getting out over your skis a little bit. I tell you what, it's going to be the potential to be a more cohesive passing attack, and one in which I think the head coach and the offensive coordinator may be more comfortable calling plays for these guys because it's like, no, dude, we're running our stuff. And they went out in the portal to get guys to run that 2019 Memphis stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah. And I think what will be biggest is you're going to get back to working and finding all of your matchups, where I think last year you got pigeonholed into trying to find a matchup for Keon or trying to find a matchup for Johnny, or just saying, screw it. These guys are just mismatches in general. And we're going to just do what we do. They also tried to pigeonhole Jordan into a certain type of scheme with what they had with those guys that maybe was not to his best strength. So anyway, let's keep this moving forward because we got to get into tight ends.
I think so too. So I think your expectations, this is a talented, fast, unproven group. This is not like, we talked very highly of them because I like the versatility of the guys that they found in the transfer portal, the value that they found on like low leverage speed. I don't think they didn't have to break the bank to get this wide receiver group. I thought it was very value efficient. I think it was a very smart way to put it together. Is it like an Ohio State and Alabama, talented receiver room? No, but it doesn't have to be to be productive in this Mike Norvell offense. Like, I thought we got a lot of good Mike Norvell receivers. Now let's talk about tight ends, because this was something that was very interesting.
It's a favorite topic of mine.
Well, because they were on the field so much. And from what we saw, there was a lot of ineffectiveness. Jaheim Bell, dude, electric with the ball in his hands. Kyle Morlock, a physical specimen. I had them both on the field a lot, and I thought the running game suffered from it a ton. We talked about it ad nauseum. We'll probably talk about it in the offseason. I thought they looked way cleaner in many facets when they would spread and use horizontal space, have more receivers on the field. Well, this year you lose Jaheim Bell, a guy who might get drafted by the NFL, had some great combine performance and was a very great athlete. And I liked him, man, dude. I liked that. He was
I did too. And he was dealing with injury also last year for most of the season, which didn't help.
Right. So you lose him. Big loss, in my opinion. Markinson Douglas, he's gone. A fan favorite.
Hurt me.
Great nickname. You bring Kyle Morlock back. Jackson West, he's a guy that has a lot of potential, hasn't realized it yet on the field. Landon Thomas comes in as a true freshman, contending for some serious playing time. Adam, what do you think of this group? Or is this one that maybe we need to not worry about, but one that is going to be a target for an addition in this post-spring portal bonanza? And how do you think that Norvell should use this group based on what we know now?
Yeah, and don't forget, Preston Daniels out. Brian Courtney's another player in the group there, very athletic football player of his own right. So obviously the conversation here begins with Kyle Morlock, who clearly went through a transition last year when he came in from shorter college. I wouldn't say that he was physically ready all the time to handle what was asked of him as far as blocking. Technique wise, he didn't handle it well either all the time. Well, there were times where he flashed and he showed a lot of the potential that they saw in him in when they went out to get him.
For sure.
To go get him. So there were flashes of that. There were flashes of him in the passing game, being that big body wide receiver or tight end body that could be a safety blanket for his quarterback. So we got to see some of those flashes from him throughout the year, but they were fleeting. They were few and far between. And he's a guy that's got to take that next step for this room clearly, because you're talking Jackson West behind him, who I've always felt was super talented,
physically gifted for sure, but
extremely, and he looks like $1 million and runs well. He fight his ass off. I mean, he will literally. I think his first year on campus, he got to fight every day in practice. Not literally, but I'm pretty sure literally he got to fight every day in practice. So,
literally, but anyway.
So, and then after him, you've got true freshman Landon Thomas, who again is a player we think is super talented, but you're asking a true freshman to come in and, I know it's the ACC. You're not asking him to come to the SEC or the Big Ten and block, big time defensive ends, but you're going to see a couple of them throughout the year, and you're potentially going to rely on him to do that. And I wouldn't include Brian Courtney in that kind of regard. I think he's kind of he's a flex Y, a guy you're going to put out wide and move around and do some receiver stuff with.
I don't know what we're going to do with him. That's an interesting athletic piece, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
Now, Kyle Morlock, as you said, some highlights, some lowlights. He was a kid that I think did progress throughout the year, and I think that he's a candidate for a nice kind of big bump, like a Jeremiah Byers bump. That dude that you invested time in last year,
I would agree.
It didn't hurt you too much. I mean, you went undefeated in the regular season, and it was a kid that you knew you'd have for multi-years, and he's the one. The downfall of this room has been that they've never had anything close to a complete tight end in Mike Norvell's time here. You've had a dude who can kind of block. You've had a dude who can kind of catch, but not block, with like Cameron McDonald. And you've put together all the essential functions of a complete tight end by having like 12 guys in your tight end room. Kyle Morlock is a dude, if that light can flip on just a little bit more in the run blocking game, he's got potential to be a complete tight end. And if he takes a Jeremiah, like we actually think Byers is going to have a nice year. If he takes a big leap, watch out, dude, because this room could be very effective. And especially this kid that we're going to talk about right here, the true freshman.
Yeah.
We've talked all video long about raising the athletic ceiling, like just the general talent level of the entire roster. It's because they're recruiting kids like this, man. So let's take a look at the film and see what his potential is to contribute this year.
I'm going to turn this on, but I want to talk a little bit more about that Morlock point you were making, because I don't know if the leaps that Morlock needs to make are astronomical. Like, it's a lot of consistency stuff. It was a lot of just getting bigger, stronger, faster, taking that time to develop, built by storms. Jeez, look at this kid running. Runs like a gazelle.
Positioning too, like he was out of position a lot.
Yeah,
like,
it was just a lot. It was just a lot of the little things, technique, being bigger, faster, stronger. It's just a lot of that stuff that he had to learn. And I don't know if Jordan was necessarily comfortable throwing to him. I don't know if he felt like he was reliable or so a guy that you could go to. Whereas the season before that, we saw him go to Cam McDonald quite a bit on third down situations in the middle of the field. So
good call.
I think a year, unfortunately, you got another quarterback coming in that you got to get acclimated with. But it would shock me to see Morlock become a more complete tight end for them this year. But we'll see as he gets out there. Haven't heard his name a lot through practice, but that's probably a good thing for a tight end at this point. So here we're going to talk about Landon Thomas. He was a 5-star to start the cycle last year, and then gradually got reduced down to a 4-star. I know some people that watched a lot of his games. They felt like he was ill-utilized, not featured the way you kind of needed him to be featured. But not 110% what was going on there.
Athletic, dude, they got him lined up all over the field. Here he is running it in, dude. They got him out in space. He looks very fluid running the route. Like,
he's like a bigger Jaheim Bell, in my opinion. I think he's a guy who is kind of between like that, what you would think of as a classic tight end, but he fits more of that new style split flex out profile of flex tight ends. But I've heard he's not afraid to stick his nose in there and block you when he puts his hand in the dirt and gets attached to the tackle. So that's really promising in my opinion. I would imagine that that's a part of his game that's just going to kind of be in development, and maybe you're going to pick and choose your matchups there for him to try to protect him in some of those blocking roles. But his development's going to be really important throughout spring, and thankfully he was a spring enrollee and was able to get in here.
Huge, yeah.
If he doesn't take the steps that you need to see, and you probably need to anyway, if he doesn't take the steps, you're going to need to go get another tight end that you feel like can come in and at least give you a floor, as a guy that you can put his hand in the dirt and block for you some. Because if Morlock doesn't take that jump, I like Jackson West a lot, but I don't know what their thoughts on him are. As far as reliability and being able to count on him throughout a season, because he's just been hurt so damn much.
You need a steady hand.
You got to take that into account.
You need a steady hand. If they're going to deploy tight ends, look at that. If you're going to deploy tight ends this year, like you did last year, you need another body as like a reliable veteran blocker. Kind of like the idea behind when they went out and got Jordan Wilson from UCLA a couple of years ago. I don't know if that actually worked out the way that they thought it would, but you just need you need a big body blocker if you're going to be running all these 2 tight end sets and these nubs and things like that. Now, that's not a guarantee that they're going to.
Right.
But I'm saying if they want to run them like how they run them last year, and Norvell loves the tight ends, and we get it because of all the extra gaps in the running game and things like that. I just don't think you have the sheer volume of guys that can help you in the blocking game.
I think what they've done and how they've handled the tight end room suggests some of what they're thinking, formation stuff, and how they're going to deploy personnel. And the fact that you've only got 4 tight ends, 2 of which have done anything, 1 of which has been hurt a shit ton. I think that suggests that maybe you're going to play more 11 personnel as opposed to 12, but we'll see. Again, it's so early in the process. That's not something that's getting decided right now.
We don't know.
Or it's getting figured out on our end right now. The staff has a plan. They've planned what they want to do, but that plan is going to evolve as they see what Landon Thomas is what he's going to be doing through spring, and how his time is going to develop, and how Kyle Morlock comes along. So this room feels like it's very TBD right now, and every spring practice is going to go into helping them determine what they want to do here.
And it's funny because we talked about 2 rooms, Adam, as we kind of wrap this up, and Landon Thomas is he's very impressive. He's fun to watch, man. Just the route running, just the fluidity of the movement. And it's funny because the commonality these 2 rooms have, other than they both catch football with their hands, is they're both very TBD rooms. But man, do I feel way more confident and better about the wide receiver room than I do the tight ends. So we will see. Like there's so much opportunity. And to me, the story of these 2 groups of positions is kind of the story of like the 2024 Florida State Seminoles. There's opportunity to be grasped. Nobody's expecting like a magical season for this team, at least not none of the pundits and the experts, right? Like everybody's expecting contending for a conference championship, maybe like an expanded playoff berth, something like that, maybe fringe. But man, they're putting together an interesting team. And you've got the physical talent there where if the steps are taken and the progress is made, these are 2 position groups and a team in general that could surprise a lot of people. I'm not there predicting that yet, but this is fun, man. This is a different spring conversation than we had last year, where it was largely known in talking about potential. Dude, the sky's the limit with like this. Like, there's so many different things that they could do that. That's why we're talking about it with you guys, man. It's fun. We're having fun. So I'm interested to see, to me, these that wide receiver, man, what they do with that position and how they put it in formations. We're going to be talking about that a lot on the offseason, and we're going to be talking about anything else that you guys want to get in the comments, get at us. We're going to be going through the other position groups. It'll be more fun because they're not just blind previews anymore. We get to talk about defensive line, linebackers. The defense as a whole will have like intel and observation.
We're going to have a scrimmage.
Gonna have a scrimmage, a head popping scrimmage. We get to the big old short hair white boys get to talk about the trenches again. We don't get to get out of our depth and talk about fast, good-looking receivers. We get to talk about the big old ugly people right in the middle. And we are gonna be here, and you guys are gonna be here with us. Like I said, subscribe to these YouTube pages, X's and Knowles, Knowles 24/7, Knowles247.com. Subscribe, get on the message board, and be in a great mood like everybody else is right now. Like the moods are high. Get on there and we'll be there. And just thank you for your viewership. Tell your friends about us. We're always trying to grow the channels. And like I said, get in the comments, participate, man. We'll do whatever you guys want. We are at your service.
If you're interested in doing a little sponsorship,
yeah,
reach out.
Hell yeah, dude. Make it rain. We're hoes. We'll take your money. We love it. Anyway. For Adam, for Kevin Little in spirit. He's alive. I just thought it'd be fun to do that thing. He'll be back very soon. For myself, Trey Rowland. This is X's and Knowles, written on Knowles 24/7. We love you. Spring is here. Keep chopping.